Hi, everyone. Welcome to the third edition of Penpot Community Hours. We started doing these events to be even closer to our community so that we can have relaxed Q&A sessions, talk about all things Penpot, future, past, what's coming. But we decided to do it with a set agenda so that, all the conversations have some insights. We decided to do a little bit of a deep dive on self-host, cover what really that means. This is going to be the last time we are going to use Zoom for these events because, the Penpot way, we love using all things open source. So we will be transferring to Jitsi. We finally believe that it meets our needs. And just with that little disclaimer, let's get to know our speakers joining. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Medet. I'm the Community and Events Lead here at Penpot. Joining me today, we have Yamila. She's from the infrastructure team at Penpot. Hey, Yamila.
Hi there.
And we have Docker's DevRel superstar, Ajeet, joining us as well. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
And with that, I think we can get started. Yami, to you. First off, let us know a bit about yourself, and then I will ask the burning question of what really is self-host. So, Yami, the stage is yours.
Okay, so thank you, Medet. Hi there, everyone. My name is Yamila, and I am part of the infrastructure team at Kaleidos. In my younger years, like a century ago, I earned a degree in literary theory and later completed a vocational training in web development. By creatively combining both backgrounds, I spent a few years working with natural language processing. But at some point, I jumped into developing open source. Then we founded Kaleidos, and during 10 years, I was working as a backend developer, several consulting projects for different clients. And most recently, I joined the infrastructure team at Kaleidos, where we are responsible for making Penpot available to everyone, both as a SaaS and as a self-host platform. I also been involved in several communities for many years, particularly the Python Spain community and several Pilates groups. And I am very happy to be here with you.
Thank you. I love the literary theory, and then I will make sure no one quotes you on century ago notation. And of course, how casually somehow I ended up in open source. We've all been there. But enough to chat. Let us know more about self-host.
So the first important thing to keep in mind is that everything is hosted somewhere. And in terms of service capacity, there are no fundamental differences when choosing where to host a platform. For Penpot, there are no differences even in features availability. You can install self-hosted, or you can use the SaaS, and you will be experiencing the same amazing platform, the same platform. The most significant difference lies in who can access the platform data. In an externally managed platform, we're talking about the SaaS, the product creator/owner is responsible for hardware maintenance, service availability, and data recovery in case of an incident. At the other extreme, we have this 100% internal management, like self-hosted, where all hardware infrastructure or even disaster recovery decisions belong to the team deploying the product. Then, furthermore, there are intermediate options between these two extremes, such having a private cloud under a hybrid management with a provider, or using even a general cloud like the ones we are familiar with. So depending on the scenario of organizations, we will have different options regarding data access and processing, as well as platform security and management policies. To self-host, we have this self-host your home. That's it's not only a chance, that it's happening. We know many designers that are using at their homes, happily using Penpot. Then for teams, they are using private clouds or the general cloud or even the SaaS.
As you were mentioning a bit, the significant increasing amount in self-hosting Penpot, This is the third consecutive year we're experiencing 100% growth, I think. Yami, correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, if people want to hear a bit more about those numbers, they can check out the Penpot Fest keynote from Pablo. And yeah, with that, let's see why. And with that, Pablo just joined the event.
Okay, so there are many reasons for our organization, to large or small, to seek alternatives to the SaaS. And to name a few of them, we have security on one hand, because if your data is critical, it's crucial to have strict control over this. Then we have regulation, because depending of the nature of your business or your product, you may have to comply with very specific regulations. And in some cases, SaaS providers are certified under various regulations, but even so, some companies need to comply with the most restrictive scenario. And to do so, they have to host their tools. Ownership, it's another reason that people, teams, and organizations look to host the tools. Because regardless of the criticality of the data you handle, it can be important or even strategic to self-host the data and the tools it manages. To truly own a dataset, it's important to be able to self-host the files, and the tool managing this data should be using open standards and open source formats. Vendor lock-in is a long-standing problem in the software industry, and in the past years, it's now a great deal of there is a great deal of awareness because we have been living some moments where a company were possessing our data, our critical data, and we were vendor locked, which is it's a problem. And then, with a more time perspective, self-hosting an open source platform gives you like future proof, because you will have a lasting and robust ecosystem, and you will not be impacted by the ups and downs of the industry or of a specific company. So you will always have the option to improve, to maintain, or to migrate if you want to, but it will be your decision.
Yeah, I think quite a lot can resonate with the idea of ownership, and how the ownership of intellectual property and how design as a very critical intellectual property has been recognized, especially in the past years. So I do strongly believe in the future-proof part.
The thing is that a design application is at the heart of a product decisions. Everything happens in the design application, in design platform. The past of a product, present, and the possible futures, even those that will not see the light, but they were just an hypothesis. So all of these reasons to self-host may resonate to many organizations, because it's not something, it could be critical what is happening in your design application. This is the reason why Penpot is experiencing great success in the self-hosted version, both for small and large organizations. As you mentioned earlier, Medet, this is the third consecutive year. We are enjoying 100% growth in all areas for developers and, of course, designers, for power users, but also casual users. And all this growth, we are seeing that self-host is growing way faster than the SaaS. So there are people wanting to self-host and having security and having the ownership, and of course being future-proof with their own tools.
So then, how do we get started? What do I need? Tell me. Let's get a bit techie.
So here you have like the entrance point to self-host. From that point, you will be redirected to any place you need to really self-host your Penpot. Installing Penpot self-hosted is very simple, and we follow common best practices. So the components involved in the deployment will be familiar for all of you. Penpot consists of 3 services. Then Nginx, and that serves a static file and handles application routing. We call it the front end. And then the backend and the exporter. On top of that, you will need a Postgres and a Valky, which is similar to a Redis. So that's what you will need. Then regarding hardware requirements, it's important to know that Penpot makes extensive use of the browser. So you need to ensure that you will have powerful end user computers. And then these end user computers, to get the most out of Penpot, we recommend using the latest stable Chrome. So once we have the best computers for our designers and developers and other stakeholders, in the server side, regarding the database sizing, you can start with 100 gigabytes and another 100 gigabytes for assets. And this will last for a very long time for a small to medium sized team. And then you can escalate. In any case, it's important to have scaling mechanisms in place so the platform success on your premises doesn't become a problem for your infrastructure team. Please be friends. Let's be friends with everyone, with all the teams. Regarding this server, 4 CPUs and 16 gigabytes of RAM are sufficient to support thousands of users. So you can be as conservative as you need when allocating resources to the instance. On the software dependencies, the only essential requirement to launch Penpot instance is having Docker on the servers. On this topic, I believe that Ajeet is going to tell us a bit more.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. With that, taking a look at how things will take shape in Docker with a little bit of a new twist on things, I would like to welcome Ajeet. Let's take a look at how Penpot and Docker looks together. The stage is yours, Ajeet.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you so much, Medit and Yami, for inviting me to this, the forum. And, ever since we, discussed through an email, I was so excited to learn about Penpot. And then the first thing which I saw was Docker Compose file. And that kept me so much excited that I just went ahead and built something called as Penpot Docker extension. And for the next, I would say 10 minutes, I'm going to show you like how you can self-host Penpot with just one click. You don't really have to even go ahead and learn about all those Docker terminologies. It's just that with one click, you can bring up a self-hosting Penpot environment altogether. But before that, a little about myself. I am working as a DevRel manager at Docker. I joined Docker around 3 years back as a full-time employee. I have been part of this community for almost like 10 years now, ever since the Docker was just like 1 year old. I have written more than around 1500 plus blogs. And right now I'm based out of Bangalore, but my whole team is scattered around US, UK, and France, and all of this thing. Since I'm based out of India, so what I have done here is like, grown the community. And today, if you see, I have my own community called as Collabnix, as well as the Docker Bangalore, which has around 16,000 people. We do meetups almost every month. These are like an in-person meetup, which we do. I'm also part of the Docker community leader. Community leaders are those individuals who conduct these conferences, those meetups, and involve that, bring excitement around the community. So for in every meetup, we try to come up with some kind of a new topic in order to keep this community excited. Also, I work very closely with ARM. I am one of the 14 distinguished ARM ambassadors all across the globe. We work very closely with the ARM team. We run containers on IoT, and there are different kind of use cases based on the ARM. Basically, ARM is a big name, right? So we just try to see like how to keep the community excited, running these containers on IoT, bringing up some AI specific workload, how to run it, and then we have ARM investors, which are more than around 300, 400 plus people, and we work closely with them. We collaborate with them, and yeah, if you want to follow up, especially my task, I'm very active in Twitter as well as all the social media platform. You can just go ahead and reach out to me. Okay, now, as I said, right, for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to jump upon the Penpot Docker extension, but I want to talk about why I built this, right? And that's the reason in the agenda, I try to keep it very simple. I will talk about all the model development workflow and the challenges which developer faces. And now, since we are not just talking about the developers, we are talking about the designer, we're talking about the ops team also, right? So what are those challenges? Then I will jump into like how Docker is trying to solve that problem. I will introduce something called as a Penpot Docker extension, which is basically integrating the third-party tool into a Docker desktop. And then I will show you a quick demo on like within few seconds how you can bring Penpot, you can self-host on your laptop, right? So to get started, let's talk about the modern development workflow and the challenges. If you see here, these particular slides talk about all the tangled, complexity, and you can see here that as a developer, right? We talked about the inner loop and the outer loop development side, right? So any typical software development cycle start with the inner loop where developer writes the code, test the code, and then once the code is tested and it is bug free, then what we do basically because it basically leaves your laptop and get into the CI/CD platform. We call it as an outer loop. Um, Development workflow. And when we talk about the inner loop development workflow, right? So we see that developers, right, they spend so much time in doing a context switching. So I'm sure, like as a developer, right, you have 10 to 15 different tools, in terms of IDs, in terms of terminal, in terms of database client. And that is what we are talking about the microservices architecture. Now, if you take an example of Penpot, right, there are around 6 to 7 different services which has to run in, in a sequence that, your front end, your back end, your database, your exporter has to come together. And that's the beauty of Docker Compose. Now, even though you are using a Docker Compose, but at the same time, when you start with the development activity, say you want to integrate some third-party tool into the Penpot itself. Now, again, you have to context switch. And when you do a context switch, right, there is always a kind of, friction. So because this is a barrier in between your development, design, and ops team, which creates a friction, and that drains your focus, right, coming back. And in a nutshell, if I have to say, like your self-hosting any of the application in your local development, it takes time, right? It is always difficult to replicate. Now imagine that, say, if you are not using a Docker Compose altogether, right, and if you are trying to deploy Penpot, now you might deploy. So one of my colleague who has, say, an Ubuntu system running, and then the other one who is running a different version of Linux system, if they are not using containers, which means that they are going to spend, say, 20 to 30 minutes in to figure it out, like which services has to be installed. And that's the beauty, right, where the containers come into the picture. You just build it once and you run it everywhere, be it a local machine, be it on IoT devices, be it on cloud, everywhere, right? So your Penpot Docker Compose is going to work on all those platforms. But at the same time, you are always juggling in between, bringing up the, in between the different IDs, bringing up the database, and then ensuring that your backend, your backend has to come first before the front end, right? Those kind of a dependencies. So how Docker is trying to solve this problem? So we introduced something called as a Docker extension, which is again a feature of Docker Desktop. So as I said, right, if you are using in a personal node, you can always go ahead, download Docker Desktop free of cost, and you can start using it. And you can see that Docker Desktop comes with a lot of all those open source tools which you can use it, right? For example, you have a Docker Compose, which is open source. You don't really have to pay for it, right? You can download it, you can contribute it, right? And there are a couple of others, like we have a file watch and all those features today which is available, right? And also in the AI space also, we have MCP, MCP gateway, we have a C agent. Those kind of a features are open source project. So as Docker promote those open source and try to and it's open for all the kind of a contribution. So one of the thing which we were thinking about it, how to solve this problem, and that's where your Docker extension come into the picture. Now, imagine that if I want to build my own observability stack, say if I want to build my own testing tools, right? If I want to customize it, and Docker extension, what it does, it basically integrates with your workflow, which means that today, even if you are like, say you are doing in the cloud development or cloud deployment or testing, so you can always go back and try to use Docker extension. And with just one click, you should be able to bring up your observability stack. You can bring up your testing environment, right? And the beauty is that we have an SDK, which means that you can build your front end in React and the back end in Go and bring up those extensions. Now, these extensions are basically available in the Docker Hub. You can always go ahead, download it, and use it free of cost. You don't really have to pay anything because it is just like a freely available on that. And right now we have around close to 113 plus extension, and Penpot is one of them. I would, one of the thing which I want to share is that I just pushed the Penpot like not even like 24 hours before, and there has been already 400 plus downloads. So this is really great, and I hope that you guys will also like it. But to just give you an idea about how does it look like, so if I click on hub.docker.com, and if I try to filter in terms of extension, you can see here there are around 113 plus extensions. And if I try to see like which are the recently updated, you can see here that okay, so recently updated, I can see that there are a couple of them, and Penpot is one of them. And as I said, right, we already have around 454 plus downloads, right? And it is just like just not even more than 30 hours, right? And that is the reason, like the community, if the community is excited, definitely there's so many things to do. Now, in one way, if you have to understand the extension, it basically it helps you in managing the logs. We have a log explorer extension where you can just click on it and you can see all the logs. um, the reason why you are going to save a lot of your time is because when you look at those services which Penpot runs, there are around 6 different services, and if I have to troubleshoot it or debug it, I need to go to each of these log and see it. Right now with the extension, you don't really have to do that. Okay, and I in a little while I will show you how it works. But the whole idea of extension is that I can manage logs, I can visualize the disk usage, I can back up the volumes, I can connect to the telnets, I can do all those cloud development, deployment tools. Tools like OpenShift can be installed just with one click. It's like a platform as a service environment, right? And the same thing applies for the Penpot, right? And this is what I was, trying to do. It was just like 2 weeks back. I was with the Penpot team with Medid, Yami, and I was talking about, okay, let's build something exciting where, as a developer, I don't really have to worry about, and it should not consume time for me to self-host. Can it be done with a single click? Because at the end of the day, it is this like the bunch of services coming together, right? So one of the question which came to my mind is like, what if you could manage a complete open source design and prototype platform with the same simplicity as a container, where I don't really have to even understand what is Docker Compose or what are the services, what are the sequence of services that has to come, right? Because when you have a front end, back end database, there is a sequence which need to be followed. Even though Compose takes care of that, but imagine that if you are completely new to Docker, right? And if you want to get started with it, and you don't really have to know all the specification, know about the YAML file, and learn all those, how it works, right, in the background. And this is where, exactly the Penpot Docker extension come into the picture. And this is a kind of a quick screenshot of how it look like. It provides you the status. You can start, stop the services. You can even see the ports, logs, and the health. So it is more like a self-hosted Penpot instance, deploy and manage with a single click. And now with this extension, you get a lot of benefits. The first thing is one-click deployment, status monitoring, you get a service management, log sphere, and quick access. And let me tell you, this project is an open source project. It is basically in the GitHub. You can always go ahead, customize the UI in the way how you want. It is just that you need to know a bit of React front end as well as the Go back end, right? If you know these two languages, right? Especially UX is more, right? It's just that you can customize it and you can have your own dashboard kind of a stuff. And one thing, let me tell you, like right now, if you see a lot of people are doing a vibe coding, right? They are coming up with their own solution, right? You come up with an idea and you want to convert it into the URL. What do? You go to pick up any of the vibe coding and come up with some kind of a UI, right? The same thing is happening here, right? Instead of going to the terminal, even running it, tailing all those, logs in order to debug and troubleshoot why the services are not coming up. This is one of the easiest way. And to just to highlight that, Penpot, as I said, right, again, even though the extension is based on React and the backend isn't Go, but it is not changing the overall architecture of Penpot. We still have the front end exporter, Valky, which is based on, the Redis. We have a backend, Postgres. and mail catch. And to show you quickly a demo of how it works, say if I have a Docker desktop here, I can go to the dashboard. And one of the thing which I want to update is, like, Penpot is in Docker extension marketplace, which means that you don't even have to run any command to install this extension. It is already there. Okay, and you can see here that I have hosted in my own personal namespace, but I would be happy to put it in the Penpot if because this is something which is very recent. And the only thing what you need to do is, like, say if I want to share this extension with my friend, I can always go ahead and click on share and share it, right? It gives you a URL. And if I want to deploy Penpot, all I need to do is just click on open and say start. Now, once you do this, what happens that it brings up all the services here, okay? Which means that I don't really have to even go and use those curl command to download those compose file and ensuring that, whether my system met with all this requirement or not. All you need to do is, if you have a Mac, if or you are on Windows or you are in Linux, you just have to go ahead, install the extension, and it should be working. One of the things which I want to say that, if you are using a Windows machine, ensure that Linux WSL is enabled so that you can run these extension on top of it. But again, you need to choose a Linux container, because on Windows you have both the variants, right? One is Linux, running a Linux container, as well as Windows container. Ensure that you have a Linux container enabled on it. Now you can see here, with just one single click, I get a kind of a status, all the 6 services up and running. I can see the Penpot running on 9001 port. I have a mail catcher which runs on port 1080. One of the thing which I majorly focus on, right? Say if you are deploying, because in the self-hosting, right, it is all about your self-control. You are controlling your infrastructure, and you should not waste your time in bringing up the infrastructure, right? It should be very seamless. And as a developer, say if I want to get started with a Penpot, all I need to do is I need to log in and get started. That's it. I don't really have to worry about whether the infrastructure has come up or not, ensuring that all the services are up or not. So one of the things which I have ensured that you get a status of all the services name, and I can even see, say if the front end I want to see the logs, I can just click on it, and this will basically go ahead and load the logs, because right now I haven't opened it. So let me go ahead and click on it, and you can see here that I am able to log in. So since I have already logged in, and in the past, so that is the reason why you see that I am already logged in as in my account. But it would ask you about the username. For the first time, you need to go ahead and create your account and the project and all of this thing. But once you log in, right, you will see that all those dashboard comes into the picture. You can see the sources. I can go ahead and look at which version of Penpot, my account information, the community and contribution. And as you say, right, just within a second, I am able to get started with the Penpot, right? And if I click on it, I can see that, because I'm accessing my front end, right? So that's why you see all those logs. At the same time, I can see all those backend logs, and if I can troubleshoot, if there is any kind of an issue, I can go ahead and fix it. And yeah, you save a lot of your time. And this is something, and to just let you know that, one of the thing which I want to mention here, and I will quickly jump into it. If you look at, I was talking about this project, like the extension. Again, it is open source. Right now, it is on GitHub. If you go to Ajeet Raina /Penpot Docker extension, you can see here that I have a Docker compose.yaml, which looks something like this, which brings up Penpot. But at the same time, we have this Penpot compose, right? Which I haven't make any changes. But imagine that if I want to change any kind of a dashboard or UI, I can go back and make those changes, right? So the whole source code is here. Feel free to go ahead, contribute to it. It has all the information, how to build it from scratch, and how to build it locally. What are those services? What are those configuration? And feel free to go ahead and try it out. And I think with this, I'm done with my presentation. Thank you so much.